A busy political day indeed. Let's waste no time and turn to our political panel, which is here with us. In Washington, Democratic strategist Julian Epstein is with Law Media Group. Here in New York, MSNBC contributor Joy Reid, who's managing editor of thegrio.com. And at the White House, MSNBC contributor and Washington Post columnist Jonathan Capehart. John, you're there at the White House. I'm not sure if you were privy to the incredible rudeness of that reporter. What do you make of this? Another example of utter disrespect to the Commander-in-Chief?
Right. I was not here for the Rose Garden ceremony, but to hear about it is actually to be rather shocked. As Mike said, there is a give and take between the president and the press corps, and that, here in the United States, we value and prize the freedom of the press and the ability of the press to question the chief executive, the ability to question the president of the United States. But as in any place, there are rules, and there are rules of conduct. And when the president of the United States, whether Democrat or Republican, is speaking to the nation and speaking before the press, it behooves the press to allow the president that space and room to make the statement and then yell the questions out at the president. Everyone knew that the president was only coming out to make a statement and would not be taking questions. So this person from the Daily Caller who, attempted this stunt at least did something for his own personal reputation and the reputation of his organization.
Yes, indeed. Julian, getting to the content now, it seems to me that today we had one candidate looking back in time at small-town America and the president looking forward to ways in which young, law-abiding immigrants, albeit brought here illegally by their parents, can be encompassed within the nation. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Romney's vision is to have ice cream socials, and the next thing we'll have is sock hops. He longs for the days of the 1950s. And I think what the president is doing here is showing that even when Congress won't act, when Congress is going to be obstructionist, that he will get something done. He got something done on the economy. We're seeing results there. Congress refused to act on immigration. The Republicans said they would get bin Laden. They didn't. The president did. This is a guy about action. The Republican criticism on this has been unbelievable. They have at first said that this is amnesty, but these bloggers and right-wingers who so rudely interrupted the president are making this argument. But in reality, Marco Rubio has proposed something that's very similar to this, one of their darlings on the right. They've also said the president has no right in doing this without congressional authorization. But Presidents Reagan, Presidents Bush, and Presidents Bush 43 all did very similar things with extended voluntary departure for Salvadorans, for Haitians, for Liberians, and for Chinese. So there's an enormous amount of precedent for this in the law. Republican presidents have done this in the past, and it just shows you how bankrupt the right wing is, both in terms of their manners and in terms of the substance of their criticism on this.
Indeed. Joanne, I just wanted to ask you about your reaction to that heckler and what you saw. You were watching it live. Was it unprecedented to you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been following, politics since I was, a kid. I've been a political junkie for a very long time. I have never seen such a sort of brazen display of disrespect as I've seen in serial moments, which you've described some of them. And I think it's just a measure of the contempt with which the right holds this particular president, that, number one, somebody would do that purporting to be from a news organization. The Daily Caller is basically a, vaunted right-wing blog, basically. But also the fact that I went on Twitter right afterwards, and a lot of people on the right were egging him on and saying that's how a real journalist is supposed to behave. There isn't even a sense of respect for the office as long as Barack Obama is in it.
Yeah. And, Jonathan and Joanne are not saying something because I think they're being politic here, but this is just so unprecedented and so outrageous that you have to ask the question, would the right wing be doing this if we had a white president there? The fact that the first
Well,
African-American
you go ahead and
president,
answer that question,
well,
Julian.
The fact that we've
you
had
answer
the
that
first
question.
I think it's a very important question because I think that this is the first African-American president. We've never had a white president been told by the opposing party to shut up in the middle of a major address to the Congress. We've never had a president like this heckled so disrespectfully. We've never had this otherness afforded to any other president. And I think the right wing is going to have some explaining to do because to me it seems patently obvious.
Well, yeah. I mean, Julian, not to their base, though. I mean, the problem here is that there aren't grown-ups sort of on the other side saying that this is out of bounds. There's no one. Everyone who does
Mitt Romney says nothing when a woman's called a slut and a prostitute.
Exactly.
So he's hardly going to stand up and say anything to this heckler, is he?
Yeah, and the treatment of not just this president as an African-American, but, go back to Sandra Fluke, the treatment of women, the treatment of anyone who dares to not be a conservative, essentially. You're just treated as basically someone who's a non-entity. And there isn't anyone on the right who is going to stand up and say that's out of bounds.
And that's right. And I don't mean to jump in front of Jonathan here, but that is why all of the demographic data is showing that the Republican Party are going to quickly become a minority party Party unless they can do better in reaching out to people of color. And when you see things like this, and exactly as Joanne says, the leadership of the Republican Party doesn't condemn it the way they didn't with Rush Limbaugh. It sends a loud and clear message to everybody else in the country.
John, do you think that someone like Romney imagines that he could become president without any support from African Americans and Hispanics?
Certainly. Certainly he can.
And do you think that's statistically possible?
You know, look, with regard to African Americans, they're 90% approval rating the president has among African Americans. And if he can get maybe 10% of the black vote, I think Mitt Romney should consider that maybe a victory. But his real big problem is with Latino voters who, through all the polls that we've seen, if he cannot crack 35% support, statistically, he's not going to be president of the United States. But right now, we are still watching Mitt Romney, the presumptive Republican nominee, still trying to convince folks in his party, particularly the far right and the conservative wing of the Republican Party, that he is one of them, which is why you don't hear him upbraiding Rush Limbaugh for what he said about Sandra Fluke, which is why you hear him coining new terms like self-deportation and things like that, alienating himself from Hispanic voters, the very voters he's really going to need if he's going to be elected president of the United States. And that is also why I hope he does this, but don't be surprised if Mitt Romney doesn't say that what that heckler did to the president of the United States was uncalled for and disrespectful, if not to Barack Obama, the current occupant of the Oval Office, then to the respect and dignity of the Oval Office.
Of the office itself, indeed.
Exactly.
Indeed. John Capehart, Julian Epstein and Joy Reid, thank you so much.